Let's begin getting into this, what I consider to be an amazing application. And let's talk about some of the fundamental things about Adobe Illustrator. Now, first off, Adobe Illustrator is probably older than a lot of people that are listening to me right now. It came out in 1987, believe it or not. It was Aldous Illustrator. It has really grown from those beginning days. Bought by Adobe. Adobe Illustrator is what we call it now. We're currently at CC, which is kind of cool, Creative Cloud. We're here to talk about fundamental differences. Many times at university, I'll have a student come up to me and they'll say, well, Professor, I've got Adobe PhotoShop and I love it. I use it all the time. And why do I need Adobe Illustrator? Because you're showing me this cat here. And, you know, I'm pretty good. I could paint that in Adobe Photoshop. I wouldn't disagree with that. I could make this in Adobe Photoshop. The fundamental difference between something done and created digitally, like with a digital camera, and opened in Photoshop, and something done in Illustrator is how it's built. Now, I have two things open, Gato, El Gato, the cat, and Flowers PSD. If you want to check these out, they are in your working folder. That's fine. But what I want to talk about is what's the difference between them. Now, this is a photograph taken with my digital camera. It is open in Adobe Illustrator, and that's fine. But I think most of us know this, but I'm going to do it anyway. If I come up and pick up my zoom tool and begin zooming in on this area right here, now this is a high-res image, so it'll take a bit, but eventually we begin to see the actual breakdown of the image itself. We begin to see the pixels that make this image up. Now, whether you know this or not, and I think you do, an image that's a photograph is built up and it's resolution dependent. The number of pixels in a linear inch determine its quality. What I like to say is photographs will live and they will die on their resolution. If I have an image with a resolution of 72, it'll be fine in PowerPoint, it'll be fine on the internet in a PDF document, but it ain't going to work if I want to print it. If it's 300, it'll work to print, but it wouldn't really be that good if you're going out to the internet. So resolution is a very important part. It's bricks. Now eventually, because it looks like a flower again here, eventually when we begin lowering the size of an image down in a program like Illustrator or Photoshop, and it's resolution dependent, our eyes lose the ability to resolve the image. Resolution is about resolving. Eventually, our eyes can no longer resolve the little tiny bricks. And what happens is color memory and color shape in our heads take over and we see a flower. But in reality, that thing is nothing but a bunch of square bricks, pixels. Now, if we go back to El Gato here, this was drawn with a pen tool. Now, it's not really that complicated of a shape. If I come up here to the word View, there's an option called Outline. Now, that won't work with a photograph because a photograph's not vector. But if I click that, you will see the outline that the pen tool made to draw it, and then it was filled with colors and it became the cat. Now, the shortcut for going from Outline to regular preview is Command Y. That's Command Y on a Macintosh or Control Y in Windows. Either way, it's going to work. Same keys, different names. The difference, and again, I think you know this. If you don't, you're going to find it out. That cat, I can do anything I want with that cat. I can blow him up to the size of the moon, and he will look fine sitting on the moon if I could get him up there. But I don't have that problem with resolution because he's vector. He is resolution independent. So if I come up and pick up my zoom tool again and begin zooming, it doesn't matter how big I make this thing, because what happens is this. Images in Adobe Illustrator are created using vector. That's math. Now, to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to do the math myself. That would be really hard. And if you had to do it, very few people would use Adobe Illustrator. The pen tools in that create mathematical shapes. As they change size, the math is redrawing the shape, which makes them resolution independent. Now, here's another thing to consider. If you're working with a photograph, you add twice as many bricks to that wall in a sense. You're increasing the number of pixels. You're going to make that file huge. It's going to be more than double its size. If I decide to make this guy bigger, appreciably it's not going to change the size of the file, because by making the file bigger, I'm just simply changing the math to achieve that goal. Adobe Illustrator is resolution independent. Adobe Photoshop is resolution dependent. So Illustrator, logos, clip art. I do all my logos in Illustrator because I can then take that logo and put it on a business card or put it on a billboard and it won't make any difference. I use Photoshop for the other stuff. Well, for photographs. And I love both programs, but both live in different worlds. Resolution dependence, that's Photoshop, and resolution independence, that's Adobe Illustrator.